Let's go. Yud Gimel.
Gimel. Okay. Regarding the stop of a barrel that is loose but does not fall off, Rabbi Yehuda says it protects, but the comments say it does not protect. It is finger hold. If its finger hold is sunk into the barrel, when a sheretz is inside it, the barrel is tamei. When a sheretz is in the barrel, the food inside the finger hold is tamei. Regarding a ball or a coil of reed grass that were placed over the mouth of a barrel, if one plastered the sides, it has not protected the utensil until the plaster above them, until he plasters above and below them. And the same is true for a woven cloth. If the cover was of papyrus or leather and one tied it with a cord, then if one plastered the sides, it has protected the utensil. Regarding a barrel that is peeled and its pitch remains intact and similarly contains as a fish brine sealed with gypsum at the rim, Reb Yehuda says they do not protect, but they come and say they do protect. Okay.
That's the new stuff. Okay, so just take note of this. Just take note of this machlokes over here. Is that it's a sealed container, but part of it's chipped away, but the inside is still keeping it sealed. And that's machlokes where Rabbi Yehuda says this is not good enough. It's got to be sealed from the outside, and Chachamim say it's good enough that the seal is intact from the inside. Okay. So we have a barrel that was it was a sealed barrel, and then it developed a hole. Okay, and then come the sediments, and they fill up the hole. So now it's blocked again. It's siluha, and then a mace came into the ohel, and so the sediments over there fulfill the function of sealing it from the inside. So this clearly follows the psak of Chachamim from the previous Mishna, where Rabbi Yehuda would say, "No, this is not this is not good enough." Okay, Pekaka bizmora. If he plugged the hole with a vine, okay, stuck a piece of wood into plug the hole. That's not going to work. It's got to be plastered on the sides, otherwise that's not considered a seal. Okay, hayushtaim. If there were two pieces of wood, if there were two vines, if there were two vines, so if you've got two of them together, then you also have to have the plaster in between the two of them. So now that segues nicely into the next case that the Mishnah brings, which is a plank. Okay, so you've got an oven that's and it's being covered by a piece of wood. So as long as he plasters over the edges, that's good enough to make it atzamid pasil, because that wood itself is impervious to tumah because it's flat, and it's and it will be and it's sealed now with the clay or whatever that you're sealing it with. What happens if you've got two planks? So you've got to have plaster also in between the two planks to seal the gap between those two. Okay, but now interestingly, asan b'sinin or b'shugmin. So b'sinin is lots of different interpretations. You can take a look in the commentary for all the different interpretations of what these things mean. But according to the diagram, looks nice. You can see with dowels.
Right.
Okay, so the dowels hold them together fast, and b'shugmin is a configuration where you've got them sort of sort of a narrow part there and a narrow part there, and they slot into each other. So again, it's a similar sort of thing where they slot into each other and they hold each other together. So they're because they are because they're held fast to each other. It's kilu, you've got one plank. There's no need to seal in between them to make it samid pasil. Okay. Mishna Zayin, Tanur Yashan Besoch Chadash. Okay, so when we're talking about an old or a new oven, what we're talking about, has it been baked in yet or has it not? Okay, if it's a new oven, then all it is clay in place that's waiting to be baked. So now the distinction that we have between new and old is that an old oven is considered a kli. and it has two characteristics that we're interested in. A, is it a kli? Can it become tameh? And B, is it, if it's not a kli, the converse thing, can it be an ohel? So a kli itself cannot be an ohel.
Okay.
Okay, a kli is just a kli, but if it's not a kli, then it can form an ohel. And that's the interesting part that we're going to be looking at over here. Is that when you see an old oven, it's a kli. When you see a new oven, it's an ohel. Okay, so and there are lots of similarities because a kli cheres, we've seen this many times before, that a kli cheres becomes tameh from its airspace.
Right.
And an ohel also seems to become tameh from its airspace, but it spreads. It's more of a spreader than anything else, and it itself does not become tameh. Okay, so tanu yashan b'soch chadash. So you've got a kli inside an ohel. That's how we're going to reread this. Okay, usrida al pi hayashan, and you've got a srida, that dish, that flat dish that is covering the old one, and it is and it's not sealed. That's the important thing. We can't, if we were talking about it something pasil, then it wouldn't be then we wouldn't have a shaila over here, but it's just resting.
It says there's an old oven within a new oven. Does that make a difference in what we're talking about?
An old oven within a new oven, right? So when I say old oven, I'm substituting kli.
Okay.
Old oven isn't kli, new oven is ohel.
Okay.
So now the shrida is over the mouth of the old oven. Okay. So if the old oven is removed, then the shrida would fall. So now, in other words, it might be tightly fitting with the new oven. In other words, the ohel. So it looks like it forms an ohel, but it's resting entirely on the old oven on the inside, such that if you had to remove it, the lid would fall. Okay, which means that it's part of the old oven, and it's resting on the old oven in the middle, not on the new oven on the outside. Which means that it does not form part of the ohel. Now the ohel has the property not only that it can spread tumah within, but it can also protect from tumah without. Okay, so then if these things are found inside an ohel hames, then the shrida failed to protect anything because it's not resting on the ohel part. So there's no ohel, and it's also not sealed. So therefore, the tumah gets through everything.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, that's why I say hakol tameh v'imlav hakol tahor. But if it rests on top of but if it does rest on top of the new oven, then what you've got is an ohel over here within an ohel, and that ohel serves to protect everything inside it from the tumah that's in the outside ohel. So it's protected because of ohel, not because of something pasil. Okay. Chadash b'soch hayashan. Now, what happens if you invert the configuration, where there's a new oven that's inside an old oven? Okay, usrida al pi hayashan, and again the lid is placed on top of the old one, on top of the kli. Okay, ein bein chadash l'srida posech tefach. Now, if there's less than a tefach gap between the top and between that srida, that lid, and the new oven on the inside, then that tefach gap, that less than tefach gap over there, is considered keilu it doesn't exist. Okay, and therefore the srida is counted as the top of the ohel of the unfinished kli on the inside. So the new oven on the inside is not a kli. It can be considered an ohel because it's got a covering that's less than a tefach above it. Usually the tefach is the sort of standard measure for allowing tumah in or out. So that's why the Mishnah comes and says, Kol shebachadash tahor, that even if it's inside an ohel hames, the whole thing is inside an ohel hames, then whatever's inside the new oven is protected. Okay. All right. Now, new case in Mishna Ches. Lefasen, stew pots. Okay, so they've got a bunch of stew pots that are stacked inside each other. Zo, besoch, zo, besif sen shavos, and their rims are even. Okay, so this is this. If the rims had been overlapping, then the inner ones would be on the inside of the outer ones. So we've dealt with those cases before. Now we're talking about that they're even. So none of them you can say is in the airspace of the other. They're all sort of independent spaces. Okay. Now, okay, sheretz ba'elyona. If the sheretz is in the top part or b'tachtana, whether it's in the top part or the bottom part, hitmeya uchulan tahoros, then only that part itself is tame. All the rest are protected, because the kli, the airspace of the kli, even though even though the inner part is actually in the airspace of the outer one, but the airspace is defined. The tumah of a kli cheres is only for what's directly in its own airspace, not for something that's in the airspace of something that's inside it. So it only goes to 1 degree, and that we learn just from a pasuk. It just says betocho, but not betoch tocho. Okay, so only if the tumah is inside the airspace of the kli itself, not if it's in the airspace of a kli within that kli. Okay, so only that kli is becomes tameh. Now we're going to be a little more complicated. If hayu b'kones mashke, now what happens if the pots are perforated to the extent that liquid would enter? Now remember, pots are things that can be used for solids and liquids. So when it's got a hole that's to the size of liquids, we would normally say we're going to go to l'chumra in any direction. So if we're talking about, is it still a kli that can be tameh? So yes, it is still a kli that can be tameh because it could still hold solids. On the other hand, if we wanted to make it samid pasil on it, and it's letting in liquids, we say that's not good enough for it samid pasil because it could let in liquids. So we're going to be machmir on this. Okay. What happens if it's inside the airspace of the innermost pot, and remember there are holes going through all of these pots going around. Okay, so the sheretz is in the innermost one, kulan tameos. Then the tumah permeates all of them because we're going l'chumra over here. They're all considered within the same airspace because now you've got that hole.
So this says that the sheretz is in the upper pot.
Yes, the upper pot meaning that you've got a whole bunch of concentric pots all sitting inside each other. Okay, right. So the upper one is the one that's inside all the others. Okay, so therefore, since you don't have a proper wall, since you've got a gap in the wall, that tumah is sitting inside the airspace of all the pots because they've all perforated. The tachtona, if however it was in the bottom pot, only the outside one becomes tameh, not the inner ones. Okay, because the inner ones are sitting there, they need tumah inside their own airspace, and a kli doesn't transmit tumah to another kli. It's got to be the sheretz that does it, and the sheretz is not in their airspace, right. So they're still safe. Sheretz be'elyona, v'tachtona udefes. Now, what happens if we return back to the middle one, okay, to the upper one, and the sheretz is in there, and the lower one has a higher lip than all the others. It and the bottom one. So let's say that you've got three Keilim. Okay, if you have 3 Keilim over here, all sitting inside each other, and only the outermost one has got a very high lip. So because the sheretz is inside the inner one,
the lower one,
so the upper one. The sheretz is the upper one in this case. Okay, so obviously the upper one is going to be tameh, but the lower one also, because its lip extends above the upper one, closing the airspace of that other one. So the lower one and the upper one become tameh, but the middle one does not become tameh because we don't have any holes in this one, but in this case, right? Okay, so the middle one is protected because its lip does not go over. So even though it's sitting inside a tameh kli, Keilim don't transmit tumah to other Keilim. Right. And our last case, be'elyona, v'tachtona odefes. What happens if it's in the oh, so this is again the same. It's the same case. It's in the Eliona, and the lower one is sticking up. Kol sheyesh ba mashke tofeach tamea. Now, if, however, the let's say the middle part that we said was tahor, but it had a drop of water on the wall, so the kli couldn't become tame from being in the airspace of the outer kli that was tame, but the water can receive tuma from being in the airspace of that other kli. So the water becomes tame, and as soon as the water becomes tame, it transmits its tuma to the kli. That's what we say. Metamecha lo timauni va'atati metani. You what that would mean is you tame did not make me tame, but you made me tame.
Right.
Okay, so that's always the case when we're dealing with liquids. Okay, and that's it. Let's do Chazara.
Behave yourself.
Okay, Chesalef.
Kesala. Regarding an oven that one partitioned with boards or curtains, if the sheretz is found in the one compartment, everything is tummy. Regarding a damaged basket plugged up with straw and hanging into the airspace of the oven, if sheretz is in the basket, the oven is tummy. If the sheretz is in the oven, any food that is inside the basket is tummy. But Reb Eliezer rules a taho. Reb Eliezer said if the container affords protection in the more severe case of a corpse, should it not afford protection in the more lenient case of an earthenware utensil? They said to him, if it affords protection in the most severe case of a corpse, that is because we can divide tens, then it should afford protection in the more lenient case of an earthenware utensil, given that we cannot divide an earthenware utensil. If it was whole, and so too a box, and so too a flask, if the sheretz is in the container, the oven is tahor, and if the sheretz is in the oven, food within the container is tahor. That is enough to take in liquid.
You skipped a page.
Right. Okay. If they developed a whole that was intended for foods, its measure is with olives. That which was intended for liquids, its measure is with liquids. That which was intended for both, we apply to the more stringent measure that is enough to take in liquid. Regarding a sedra that is placed in the mouth of an oven and sinks into it and has no rim, if the sheretz is in the sedra, the oven is tame. If the sheretz is in the oven, the food that is in the sedra is tame. The only utensils protect from the tuma of an earthenware utensil. Regarding a barrel that is full of tahor beverages and is placed within the floor of an oven, if a sheretz is in the oven, the barrel and the beverage are tahor. And if the barrel was inverted and its mouth open to the airspace of the oven, if a sheretz is in the oven, beverage suffice to moisten. That is on beverage sufficient to moisten. That is on the bottom of the barrel is tahor.
Okay.
Now into midos base olive. The temple mount was 500 amot for 500 amot. The majority of the space was in the south. The second largest was in the east. The third largest was in the north, and the majority of space was in the west. The area that had the greatest size also saw the most use. All those entering the temple entered toward the right and circled and exited toward the left, except for one to whom something adverse occurred. For he would circle toward the left, and why are you circling? Why are you circling toward the left? Because I am a mourner. May the one who dwells in this house comfort you. Because I was excommunicated. May the one who dwells in this house instill compassion into your colleagues' hearts, that they should draw you close. These are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Yossi said to Reb Meir, you have made them out as if they overstepped the bounds of the law. Rather, they should say, may he who dwells in this house instill reason into your heart, that you should hearken to the words of your colleagues, and they shall then draw you close. Inside of the Temple Mount wall was a sarid, 10 tefachim high, and there were 13 breaches in it. Breached by the Greek kings, the Jews once fenced in those breaches and decreed 13 partitions corresponding to them. Inside the sarid was the chel, the 10 amot long, and there were 12 steps there. The breach of the step was half an amma, and its tread was half an amma. All the steps were there in the temple. The height of each step was half an amma, and its tread was half an amma, except for those of the antechamber. All the entryways and gateways that were there, the height was 20 amot, and their width was 10 amot, except for that of the antechamber. All the entryways that were there had doors, except for the antechamber. All the gateways that were there had lintels, except for the Taldi gate, from which there were two stones leaning upon each other. All the doors of the gateways that were there would change to gold, except for that was Nicanor gate, because a miracle occurred with them, and some say because their copper shone.
Okay. Bechoros, base one.
If a ewe which had not previously given birth but two males, and the two heads emerged simultaneously, but Yossi Gili says both belong to a Kohen, since it is stated the males are to Hashem. We can comment on what I would say it is impossible. Rather, one lamb is his and one goes to the Kohen. Reb Tarfon says the Kohen selects the better one for himself, and Reb Akiva says the fatter one is at the issue between them, while the second one is left to pasture until it develops a blemish, and is subject to the law of gifts to the Kohen, and Reb Yossi exempts it. If one of them died, Reb Tarfon said they divide. Reb Akiva says the burden of proof lies on the one who seeks to exact something from the other. If a male and a female were born first, there was nothing here for a Kohen. If two youths had not previously given birth for two males, he had given them both to a Kohen. If they bore a male and a female, the male belongs to the Kohen. If they bore two males and a female, one belongs to him and one to a Kohen. Reb Tarfon says the Kohen selects the better one and for himself. Reb Akiva says the fatter one is at issue between them, while the second lamb is left to pasture until it develops a blemish. And it is subject to the law of gifts to the Kohen, and Reb Yossi exempts it. If one of them die, Reb Tarfon says they divide. Reb Akiva says the burden of proof lies on the one who seeks to exact something from the other, and if they bore two females and a male, or two males and two females, there is nothing here for a Kohen. Okay, we have
one more.
That's really? Oh, I'm sorry. If one had previously given birth and one which had not previously given birth but down to or two males, one belongs to him and one belongs to the Kohen. But Tarfon says the Kohen selects the better one for himself. Reb Akiva says the fatter one is an issue between them, while the second lamb is left to pasture until it develops a blemish and is subject to the law of gifts to the Kohen. Reb Yossi exempts. For Reb Yossi was wont to say whatever has a substitute in the Kohen's hand is exempt from the law of gifts to the Kohen, and Reb Meir moves it subject to the gifts. If one of them die, Reb Tarfon says they divide. Reb Akiva says the burden of proof lies on the one who seeks to exact something from the other, and if they bore a male and a female, there is nothing here for a Kohen.
Yeah.
Now we have
Basra
and test Zion. If someone distributes his property orally, Rabbi Elliot says whether he is healthy or dangerously ill, properties which can become subject to a lien are acquired through money, a document, or an act of possession. Those which cannot become subject to a lien are acquired only through Mashika. They said to him, it occurred with the mother of the sons of Rachel that she was ill and said, give my veil to my daughter, and it was worth 12 manna, and she died, and they upheld her words. He said to them, as to the sons of Rachel, their mother should bury them. The could come and say, on the Sabbath his words are upheld because he cannot write, but not on weekdays. Rabbi Yeshua says they said it on Sabbath and certainly on weekdays. Similarly, one can acquire on a half of a minor, but one cannot acquire on a half of an adult. Rabbi Yeshua says they said it for a minor and certainly for an adult. If a house collapsed upon a man and his father, or upon him and from one whom he inherits, and there was a wife's consuba or a competitor's claim outstanding against him, the father's heirs claim that the son died first, and the father, while the two competitors claim that the father died first, and the son, Beit Shammai says. Beit Shammai says they divide the estate, but Beit Hillel says the property remains its status. If a house collapsed upon a man and his wife, the husband's heirs claim that the wife died first and then the husband, while the wife's heirs claim that the husband died first and then the wife. The Shammai says they divide the estate, but Hillel says the property retains its status. The ketubah is in the possession of the husband's heirs, and possessions would enter and go out, which are in the possession of a father's heirs.
Okay.
Yoma. If they made a ramp for it because of the Babylonians which used to pull at his hair and say to him, take it and leave, take it and leave, some of the eminent men of Yerushalayim used to accompany him to the first booth. There were 10 booths from Yerushalayim to a precipice. It was 90 reis, 7.5 reis to every mill. At each booth they would say to him, here is food and here is drink, and they would accompany him on that booth to the next booth, except for the last of them. For the last escort could not go with him for all the way to the precipice, but they would stand from afar and observe his actions. What did he do? He parted the strip of red wool, half of it tied to the rock, half he tied to the horns, and pushed it backwards. It tumbled down before it reached halfway down the mountain. It was torn limb from limb. He would return and sit under the shade of the last boot until it became dark. And from where does he contaminate clothing? As soon as he gets outside the world of Yerushalayim, Reb Shimon says, from the time he pushes him down to the precipice.
Okay. Finally, Uktzin. Beis Aleph.
One who preserved with their leaves are tahor, because he only soaked them for their appearance. The hairs of cucumbers and the blossom are tahor. The Yehuda says, as long as a cucumber is by a merchant, it is tameh. Therefore, the membrane of a dry combines, but the membrane of a moist state does not combine.
Oh, wait. Did you just skip a page?
Flip the page. All pits contract tuma and convey tuma, but do not combine. The pit of a moist state, even though it protrudes, combines, but the pit of a dry date does not combine. Therefore, the membrane of a dry date combines, but the membrane of a moist state does not combine. The pit of which a portion protrudes, that which is opposite the food combines. The bone on which there is meat, that which is opposite the food combines, and if meat was on one side of the bone, Mishael says the view as the meat surrounds the bone in a ring, but the comments say what is opposite the food combines, like wild, rosemary, hyssop, and savory. Okay, one more. Regarding a pomegranate or watermelon, a portion of which is rotten, the portion does not combine. If the fruit is complete on either side and rotten in the middle, it does not combine. The pitum of a pomegranate combines, but its nets, it does not combine. But Elias says even the marik is tahor.
Okay. That's it. I'm gonna run.
My wife says, "You're doing this for a long time. How much longer do you have?" Only 2, 3.
So that was part.
Bye.
Goodbye.